Welcome to our second episode of When a Man Loves a Woman. We are excited to be here, and I'm grateful to have my brothers, Barry Hatcher and Karl Marx, with me as we discuss a very important topic, which is why men need peace, why men want peace, not just need it, but want it, because we understand that men can't survive in a situation where there's not peace around them. And the deeper question is why so many men feel like peace keeps slipping away from them. And so in this episode, the three of us, we're going to talk about the pressure, the silence, the emotional withdrawal, communication, and what it takes for men to build peace instead of just wanting relief. This is a real conversation that's going to be designed to uplift our men, support our women, and strengthen our families. And this is why we're going to have this great discussion today, because once we lock into our question, we're going to get some real answers that I believe are going to help us all. And so our main question today is this: why do so many men want peace, but feel like it keeps being taken from them? Barry, why don't you start us off?
Well, well, Pastor, I think mostly all men want peace. Peace is very important to us because I believe that our role in life is to protect, to provide, and to lead our families. So, in order to do that, we need peace in our mind. We need peace within our spirits so that we can accomplish these goals. Now I believe in these modern times. The reason why we feel like peace is being taken away from us because the culture is being trained differently. So now women are kind of being trained to live as men. So
Mm.
now when we're in relationship with women, it's almost like we're bumping heads and fighting against each other because the roles are not understood anymore,
Mm.
which takes away some of our peace because we're coming home so that we can de-stress, so that we can relax, so that we can have some calm. But sometimes we're met with something else. And I'm not saying that all women are antagonistic or always argumentative or things like that. But there's that word submissive, um, and that's a fight in this culture. And submissive does not mean subordinate, but it does mean that you should be supporting me and not constantly fighting against me and questioning every move that I make. So I think that's why it feels like it's taken away from us.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
Okay, all right. Yeah, it's like
Carl, what you got to say?
one thing that definitely came to my mind with that, why so many men want peace. Well, if you really think about the nature of a man, um, we are looked at to be the provider. And if you look at today's man versus in the very beginning of mankind, like we are in different times from way back when. Like back then we had to go out hunt for food and bring home the literal bacon. And nowadays, we're going to an office job, depending on where you work. You might have a physical, manual, laborious job that you feel like you're actually putting in your work to make your money. So if you really think about it from the point of view of the provider standpoint, how can you not look at the man or any person in that situation who, I don't want to say the stress, but depending on how you really do handle stress, my one focus once I had a long days of hard work, and by all means there's different definitions of hard work
Hmm.
nowadays. There's hard strenuous work, but then there's also hard mental work. So if however you look at it, as long as both parties are on the same page of what you are faced with and coming back home to the peace, like I think it's safe to say all of us agree that we're never going to come home from a long day of work and choose to pick a fight with
Hmm.
our lady.
Right.
That's
Right.
I believe so. So, like, and again, like Barry said, not to say that the woman is coming home and, oh, why is the clothes all over the ground? Why did you take your shoes off and leave it right at the front door? Like, I can only speak from experience with my mother, but like, I've seen these things being at home that, it's easy to get wrapped up with the emotion of there's no order at home, but in reality, we are putting in that work because we want home to be orderly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was thinking that men want peace but don't feel like they're getting it, that it's being taken away from them. And I think one of the reasons is because women don't know that's what we want.
Yeah.
Because most ways the culture conditions women is to assume that men just want sex. And so as long as they
True.
get sex, they think they've checked off the list and their man is happy, not realizing that men actually want something that's, now we want sex, let's be very clear, we want sex,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
it is not a substitute for actually having peace. Because
Yes.
having peace and the sex, now you in heaven. But
Oof.
without the peace, the sex may be nice and good, but it can't be as fulfilling, because the moment you get out of bed, that's where the problems start. And
Mhm.
I really believe that most women aren't taught that what a man needs around him is peace. And that is really a lesson that hasn't been passed down. I was raised by my grandparents, and my grandfather, when he came home from his manual labor job, he just sat in his chair, took out his pipe, and he smoked his pipe and just chilled out. Nobody bothered him. We were told as kids to leave him alone. We'd be running around or whatever else, but we would never go into where he was, because um, that was he needed his peace. He needed his
Yeah.
space. And that's what my grandmother gave him. And I think as we go from generation to generation, we've lost that sense of what men really, really want. And men want peace. They don't want to come home and get a laundry list of, well, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do the other. Men don't want that, because you've done that all day long. When you come to your home, you want peace. You want an enjoyable environment. You don't want a whole bunch of tension and arguing and conflict and
No.
bickering and all. We don't want that, and you can't just make it up in the bedroom, because the moment a man walks through that threshold, what he needs to feel is that he can take his armor off. And if he comes into a battleground, that he's not going to take his armor off, and he's most certainly not going to be relaxed and be loving and want to really embrace everybody around him, because now he has his armor on, so
Yeah.
everything is going to be distorted, because you'll interact with the kids with the armor on, you'll interact with your wife with the armor on. You can't have a real family like that. And I think
No.
that's a sensitive area, but I don't think women have understood that, and because they don't understand it, men suffer through, and they actually end up, getting quiet, getting silent, and not really wanting to engage, because men really don't like to argue, because
No.
at some point you want to just be able to just be at peace, and men know
Yes.
how to make some version of peace to get them through.
So I want to ask
Yeah.
you guys then. So, peace not being the absence of conflict, because you definitely brought up that conflict aspect. From my point of view, I am going to understand that conflict is going to come. Like, just like the sun goes down, the sun is going to come back up. But I want to know what you guys think about that.
As far as peace is not the absence of conflict.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think you can have conflict and still have peace, because what is conflict? Like disagreement. So we could disagree. That's okay. What's the saying? Disagree without being disagreeable.
Right.
So if we have conflict and we disagree on something and we're trying to work something out, there's still peace there, because there's still a way that you're talking to me with respect. There's still a way that we're managing through this situation with respect. I think where that peace breaks is now where now names getting called, and now, you know, you're not this and you don't do this, and I think that's where the peace breaks. I don't think it's because of conflict, because I think in life there's always going to be some form of conflict.
That's good.
I
That's
want to
good. There
bring
was
one.
one of our commenters actually
Mhm.
said the kids, um, the kids are a problem, and I think we'd agree that the kids sometimes are the culprit in removing peace from the house, and that is something we got to talk about, because when there are kids in the house, there has to be a balance, because kids have needs. They have needs of attention. That's one of their greatest needs. In fact, here's some good wisdom for my brothers out here, and really for our sisters as well who are watching. We were taught, Quinn and I, my wife and I were taught when we were just young newlyweds without any kids. A spiritual mother of ours took us aside and said, "You know what things kids need most? What's the four-letter word that kids need most?" And we were like, "Yeah, love, Love, love." And she said no, and she was an educator, so she just dragged it out, and she said, "What's another one?" So we kept throwing out words. She said no, and I'm like, "Will you please just tell us what the word is?" But she kept asking us, and we kept offering solutions, and finally she said no. What kids need is time.
Mm-hmm.
Time. And she said either you will give it to them freely, or they'll take it from you by having to go to prison, going to school to
Mm.
talk to the teachers, into the delinquency. But if you don't give them the time willingly, they're going to take it in a way that's going to just cause all kinds of chaos in your life. And I never forgot that. That was such a powerful lesson
That's
that
for
she
real,
taught
right?
us. That kids need time. And so how do we balance that? How do we balance the working hard all day? And I don't care whether you work manual labor or office job, it's still mentally wears you down. So when you're ready to come home, when you know you have the wife and the kids, what do you do in that situation? How do you balance that? How do you handle that?
I mean, I I have two kids. I I'm sorry. I do hear your question, but and I'll get to that. But I definitely agree with this the comment, because I do think kids have a way of breaking peace in your house, and I think they have a. It's not the kids, but it's the adults who maybe come from different places and have opposing views on how to deal with these kids, opposing views on how to spend time with these kids, uh, opposing views on discipline, and that breaks peace in the house, and the kids learn quick of how to manipulate that. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
so I definitely think that's a way that takes that, not just from the men, but just takes peace out of the house. And I think that the time aspect is, that word intentional, right? You have to make space. I know when I was younger and I worked a lot, I was either working or running them back and forth from here to there, or I was sleeping. Um, so it's just trying to manage that time and make it intentional and make those moments count, right? Like make each one of those moments count, so that they'll have a memory in their head. Hey, Dad, me and Dad did this. Me and Dad did that. Um, because, like you said, absence of you is bringing something else into their life that may not be that may not be profitable to their life. I know that from my own life.
So can I interject a thought on that as far as children wanting time? If you look at it from the adult standpoint, and this is coming from a guy who does not yet have kids, one day to have kids, um, but just me looking from the outside, I'm putting myself into that position, and truthfully, I feel like I am going to think back to my own childhood to think about, what I received from my parents. So now at this point, for if again, me in a situation where I have children now, is this poor time management on the adult, or is this more so just overwhelming? Because I one child versus five children, that's different parenting all alone right there. So even with Rebecca talking about them kids though, I again, me personally, I don't have kids, but my mother definitely did babysit, and she has been around kids. So I've been around kids, and I can see from the outside looking in that that can be overwhelming. But it's just the fact of again, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like at that point in that adult's point of view, like maybe that's something that's a part of their life that they actually do have to get better with, the time management aspect. Because again, go back to your childhood. Did your parents give you that time? I think that would really push you in the direction of whether or not you actually do want to give your children that time. Because you're going to either say, well, my parents didn't give me that time, or my father didn't give me that time. You're going to either say, I'm not going to do it because I went through it, or I didn't get it. And I know my children will never deserve that. So I'm going to give them my time no matter what.
Yeah, I think I don't want to go too far because I know we'll be going way from the topic. I think
Yeah.
because I think that's a complicated thing. Because I think about my childhood. My mom was a single mom, so it wasn't really time management. It was more financial, where she couldn't make all of that time because she had to work. She was providing for two kids, one
Mhm.
person with a low income wage job. Um, so that wasn't necessarily time management. It was more of a financial thing. So I think that's a complicated question you just asked because that's many different reasons. And yes, because of that,
Mhm.
I made decisions in my life that I was intentional about spending time with my kids because I knew what I didn't have. Sometimes the thing your parent didn't do is what makes you a better parent. It's not necessarily
Right.
things that they
Mhm.
did do; it's what they didn't do. I think.
No, that's exactly right. And I know with me, what we had to do when we had kids, my wife and I, is we had to determine what our boundaries were. And I think this is probably a good discussion to have even on another day. But I knew when I was working in New York City and I had to commute from New Jersey into New York City, that was a roughly 3 hour round trip. Unless, if the traffic was working good, it's 3 hours. But usually the traffic didn't work well. And it ended up being, 3.5, 4 hour trip. So when I got home, the last thing I wanted was kids jumping around, even my wife, wanting to download everything that happened during the day. And so we came to an agreement that I needed at least 45 minutes of decompression time. And so when I
Mhm.
came in, the kids were told, "Hey, give Daddy a minute. He's just getting home. He'll be back with us in a moment." And I would go somewhere and just sit down and just decompress, just take my shoes off, sit back, and really just relax, think, pray, meditate, whatever, but kind of get work off of me so I could really be present. And then I'd come down, we'd have dinner, and it was on to for family time. So it is a requirement to make time, but there has to be negotiation because
Yeah.
we have real needs. And I think that's where those conversations have to be talked about, because if we don't talk about how we want peace and need peace, then we'll always be it'll be assumed that we can just go 24/7 and everything's going to be all right, when of course we know it's not going to be all right. And so what men do is we we withdraw and we just stay into ourselves, and so we get quiet, and we get quiet because we just want peace. We don't want to argue.
Mhm.
We don't want to answer any questions. We don't want to solve any problems. We just want peace, so we just get quiet, and that's not real
Yeah.
peace. You know,
No.
that's why, Carl's question or statement about, the absence of conflict. Silence will give you a lot of absence of conflict, but it most certainly is not going to give you real peace, which is what we actually want.
No, because even though we might be silent, it's like sometimes we're, like you said, sometimes we're silent because from the historical data, we just might not want to engage in the conversation with you because we think that conversation might lead us down a road where we don't want to go. So we just stay silent.
Can I get a
But that's
witness?
not peace. That's not peace though, because we would prefer to engage with, our significant other. We would prefer to do that if we knew that it wasn't going to take us down a road where we didn't want to be.
My God, my
It
God.
be's like that sometimes, how they say it.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I
Yes,
oh I
sir.
see you didn't eat my peanut butter sandwich I made you.
Lord Jesus.
I
Lord
wasn't
Jesus.
hungry.
No, that's exactly right. But we've got to find some way to negotiate having peace. Even if, I want to say this to you, brothers. Even if you are in a house right now where it is a bunch of conflict, a bunch of arguing. I want you to really renegotiate a peace talk, a settlement, a peace settlement. You know, tell your wife, tell your girlfriend, your fiance, whatever she is. Let's make peace our priority in this house, and what that looks like. You paint a picture of what that looks like. How you all can sit and talk, but not argue. You can deal with issues without, as the old saying says, you can disagree without being disagreeable. That you can have mature adult conversations, which we ought to be able to have, but yet not want to tear each other's throat off and all these other kinds of things which go on. Because really when there's pressure, peace is often lost. And we know that in this day and age, there's a lot of pressure that's taking place in our families. There's a lot of pressure that's going on the job, in relationships with children, all that stuff. And what happens when that pressure comes in is that peace runs out of our house. So how do we operate when that pressure is real? When the mortgage has to be paid, when the light bill. I mean, we in Jersey, our electric bills have gone up like crazy. But what happens when your utilities go up so high? Your salary stays the same, but now you're paying more, and you're seeing that vacation money that you wanted to save being gone, and not being able to be used. How do you handle that pressure and still keep your peace?
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm going to get a little spiritual. I think you lose that peace because you kind of lose your faith a little bit, your trust in God, because really that's when the two of you should be really coming together and being that force that you were put together to be. But yes, what happens is these these woes of life, you start paying attention to that instead of to each other. When you think back, the both of you got through a whole bunch of things before, but now you're at this point and you're like, oh, I can't do it. So now one is blaming the other, and why didn't you do this? And you should have did that. Why, you could have worked overtime. You know what I mean? So it becomes this unnecessary battle when the struggle is already there. You two arguing, you two fighting over this thing is not going to stop JCP&L from wanting their bill. It's
Yeah.
how do we figure this out together, without breaking down. I mean that's kind of what I think, and because it does get lost, the peace does get lost under pressure. And finances, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest reasons people leave each other.
No,
Yeah,
that's
finances
exactly right. In
definitely.
fact, it's one of the main reasons is that financial pressure. So when pressure comes, we can't just turn on one another. I think that's a key point. And my son says this about arguing, and I mentioned it last time we were together in our first episode. But the truth is, your spouse, your girlfriend, your fiance, she's not the enemy, even when the pressure comes. Now, she may be the source of some of the pressure because the kids may need clothes. Bills may need to be paid. Groceries may need to be in the refrigerator. And all that comes as pressure. But if you look at each other as the solution and the partner to the solution, and not just look at your partner as a part of the problem, a part of the pressure, that gives you a different approach. You still can have the discussions and everything else, but you're doing it unified. You're doing it together in order to make sure that that peace remains in the house. That's important, because if not, we will lose our peace and lose our relationships at the same time.
That's a fact.
Now, Carl, you a single man. How do you make sure the pressures that are building? You all are planning a wedding and all that kind of stuff. So how are you balancing all of that?
I know that I could definitely be doing a better job balancing that. If I could be honest. But the key thing that Barry said, we have to be unified on that faith aspect. In those hard times, and even if you take the relationship out of it, as a single man, as a single woman, not in a relationship, life is still going to happen to all of us. So these times that we are in right now, where bills keep piling up higher and higher, and like you said, PSE&G still wants that bill paid on time every time. So, it all depends on how you maneuver in that situation. But at the end of it all, the beginning, the middle, and the end of it all, you have to always give God that faith of, I know that you are with me even in these hard times. I know that you will pull me through. I know that you will make a way for this to really, you're going to make a way for us to get through this. Like I said, that's whether you're single or you're in a relationship or you're married, hard times, good times, everything. Till death do you part.
Right. Now, but brethren, let's y'all talking real spiritual, and I appreciate you all. But let's be real. You can love God and be sick of your spouse.
Yes.
And
God, why'd you send me her?
Yeah, yes, sir. So how in the world do we deal in those situations? Because we're talking good, about the Lord and prayer and confessing the word and all that's wonderful. But the truth of the matter is, when you face that financial pressure, and it's all because your wife overspent the budget. Now, she may have reasons for doing it, but she still overspent the budget. And you talking about, well, just pray. That's not sufficient in people's minds. Now, yes, does prayer work? So don't try to say, oh, he's trying to say prayer doesn't work. No, prayer certainly works. But when your emotional side can be very much unhappy with what's going on, and so how do you manage that when your flesh is rising up, or it's in a season where you all are not getting along, and then the pressure adds on to it, because that's really how the devil likes to mess with us. So what is your advice for that?
If I could say for me personally, thank God I haven't gone through that just about yet. Now, whether or not we come to that crossroad and that happens, for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I am an outside of the box kind of person. Like, and no matter the situation, whether I'm under the fire or I'm chilling on the side of the road, I'm going to assess what that situation is in that moment. And yes, I'm going to come off as being quiet. Now, quiet isn't always necessarily a bad thing. It's more so processing, taking all that information in, coming up with a plan to try to get out of that situation. Now, I know for me, I can tend to be stuck in my head of, all right, perfect example, if you got a flat tire on the side of the road. All right, I don't know what I just hit, but I know I got a flat tire. Where's my spare? Where's the tools that I need to go make sure that I can get that flat tire off? Like, am I, first and foremost, am I even safely off of the road that I'd be able to do what I need to do to handle that situation? You know, so in situations, depending on the situation, um, me personally, and whether or not it works for you, because you know it's very easy when those emotions flare up, whether it's hot or cold. You know, you really have to keep those emotions in check.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Pastor. What are you asking? Because 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 every moment is not pretty.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
How do we handle those
yes.
not pretty moments? How do we handle those not pretty moments?
Even when it's not that they did it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even when there's the situation that the problem is there, and you just want to blame somebody, and they're the closest person to you.
Right.
So for one, how to handle the moment and the after effect of maybe, I'm sorry, I did not mean to talk to you like that, because I am more of a confrontational person, not like abusive or anything
Put
like
them up.
that.
Put them
But
up. Put them up.
I like to tackle problems head on, so that we can get them out the way. I don't like things to fester. Now, if I see that I'm trying to tackle it head on, and because everyone is not the same, and you know, you want it to fester a little bit, then I'll go quiet, like you said. Now, how do you handle that? Well, for one, I'm still trying to figure that out. For two, I think you have to remember that you love this person.
Mm.
I think you have to, if you're in marriage, I think you have to remember that God sent you this person for a reason. I think you have to remember, like I said, the things that you guys did get through. You have to remember that they're a person too, because sometimes I think the length of time that you're in a relationship with the person, you start to take them for granted. Period. Don't do that. Remember that they have feelings, that they make mistakes. You have to have grace in these moments, because yes, sometimes it gets hard. And like you said before, sometimes I'm looking at you like I don't like you.
Yes.
Like I'm just being real. It's not I don't love you. I don't like you. And so I think in these moments you yeah, I guess a word I would say is compassion. You have to have compassion. You have to think. You have to think. What is? You have to think of how you would want to be treated in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying this. I'm saying this, but I'm not saying that it's something that's always easy to do under the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not.
No, it's not easy. It's not easy, and that requires us to keep ourselves under check, because if not, we'll tear the whole house up, and then want to come back and think that an apology will just clean it up. And the truth of the matter is, we can do a lot of damage with our mouths, men. That
Mm.
you know, we wound our wives, we wound our children, and an apology, though sincere, is still not going to be sufficient to get us to to change things around. And that's so vital, because our families deserve better, and that's where we have to, as the Bible says, possess our vessels. So even though we feel that anger and frustration rising up, and we feel the smart comment ready to be said, we have to possess our vessel enough to realize, if I say this, this is going to be like throwing an atom bomb in the middle of my house. And everybody loses when you throw an atom bomb. Nobody survives that. It's like mutually assured destruction. And that's really what happens. And even when we argue, which we need to do an episode at some point on how to fight the right way, because we don't know how to fight. And of course, I'm not talking about anything physical. I'm talking about the disagreeing.
Right.
We don't know how to fight properly, and because of that, we take cheap shots. And particularly, and I know you all have experienced this. Once you make that shot, your wife's gonna remember that. Your fiance is gonna remember that. It could be 10 years and you would have moved on, apologized, bought gifts, and all that other kind of stuff. And literally, that's going to still be on her mind. And you're going to do something 10 years after that that's going to remind her of that thing that you said and how it hurt her. And you're literally going to go right back to that moment, plus the aggravated aspect of what you just did contemporaneously. And so it's like, you know, you're always fighting that history, even though you thought you moved on from it. Some things you just can't easily move on from.
Right. That's true. That's very true.
You know, and so brethren, you know, we've done a lot of talking about this, but now let's talk specifically to our men about what men need to hear when it comes to this topic of peace. What do men need to really hear about peace? So I'll start with the first one, then let's just keep on talking. But men wanting peace is not a weakness. Now I need us to hear that, because you know we have a sense that by wanting peace that's somehow, you know, not masculine. It's not. It's a feminine trait to want peace. And so we see peace as a weakness, and I got to be strong. I got to be on. I got to always be ready to make things happen, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a nice, you know, that's a nice myth that we live with. But the truth of the matter is, we can't always be on. Every man, I don't care how strong he is, I don't care how industrious he is, every man needs a break. And it's in those peaceful moments that we can hear from God, we can plan out our future, we can lead our families from a position of peace as opposed to a position of chaos. And I think that's what I want the brothers to actually hear, is that wanting peace is not a weakness.
Then
truthfully, sorry. Go ahead, Barry.
Nope, go ahead. So
yeah.
I think adding on to the peace, because I think part of a man's peace is having respect in their home, respect from their wife, respect from their kids, and I don't think that's wrong, because I think respect is fuel for men. I think it brings a sense of peace, being valued, like for our contributions and our efforts and the role in our relationship, because it kind of lets us know that we're leading as we're supposed to be. So that brings us a sense of peace. I do want to say something too, as far as speaking to the men. You know, we're all human beings, so sometimes we may have hurt our partner in some way that they're dealing with it. So that takes away some of the peace in the house. But as men, we want them to get over it quick. So we also have to have that patience with our significant others, even with our children, for them to get past that hump of what you did to hurt them. I think that brings us peace too. Being realistic about how we may have treated our family members, and maybe sometimes the way that they're reacting to us is just a reaction of the hurt that they have inside. So you know, I want men to know that too, that we have to have patience, especially when we've done something that that hurt our family. But peace is so necessary for us. It's necessary for us to do the things that we need to do to bring our family forward.
Absolutely, and so I like you said peace and patience, because even though we need peace, it may be an adjustment in our families how to get to that level of peace that we really want. You know, and so whether it's coming off of an argument, whether it's because of just conflict in the house that's just kind of your norm, because some people, all they know how to do is exist in chaos. And so when there's peace, they don't know how to handle that, because they didn't grow up like that. Yeah. They didn't grow up like that. So for them, peace is like an alien. It's like a unicorn. Who sees one of those? But yet that's what men want. That, in fact, it's not just what men want, it's what men need to really
Yes.
function the way they were created to function. And so there has to be a sense that we desire peace, but we also have to have patience as we move along from the chaos and drama to a state of really having peace in our families.
Yeah,
Amen.
I know. Like for instance, like we're speaking to the we're speaking to the men right now. But one thought that definitely did come to mind. And Pastor, you touched on it with the chaos. Women, if you have a man that feeds on the chaos, that is a big red flag. Like me again, as a
Talk
man,
about it.
I live for peace. Like and even for me, when I moved out of my parents' house, I knew that I need to build my home to make my safe space. And I made my safe space my peace.
Amen.
So, as a single man before getting engaged, yes, I enjoyed my alone time, but also, I understood that I can't just stay here by myself.
Right.
So, it's like, but again, going back to that word, any man that feeds on chaos, that is a huge red flag. Run away.
Amen. Amen. That's right.
Amen. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Because disappearing is not a strength. And what we mean by that is when you're in a marriage and you don't have that peace that you want, men know how to go down to the man cave. They know how to work late. They know how to even
That's right.
grab their peace wherever they can. I was going to show this video tonight about the guy who came home from work and he fell asleep in his car, and his wife comes out and she's like, what you doing out here? Why didn't you come in the house? And just peppered him with questions. And he's like, I just needed a break. I needed a rest. And then he said, I just need some peace. And she's like, well, I'm gonna sit in the car with you. And he's like, and he locked the door. He's like, no. And she's like, you locked the door? You locked the door? You know? And it's like she didn't get it that this man needed peace and he needed rest. And disappearing though is not the best way for us to get it.
No.
But that should be to our women, that should be a sign that something's wrong. That when a man has to disappear to find peace, something's wrong in the relationship. That should get your attention. And please, ladies, don't sit there and say like, oh, if you're a real man, you'd be able to handle all of this. No,
No.
Now,
no,
question. So, let's say the man in that situation, he truly does not know any other coping mechanism in that moment. How can he turn that moment of just sitting in his car for 5, 10, 15 minutes? How can he change his wife's point of view of him sitting in that car for 5, 10, 15 minutes and look at that as not necessarily a negative way?
I think it's what Pastor said earlier. He spoke with his wife about boundaries, that he needed that 45 minutes when he came home. Now, I will be honest. In this culture, I don't know. Some women might not. They might say, "Why you need that?"
Mm-hmm.
But communication is important because, like I spoke about to you, Pastor, that I used to come home and sit in my car for about 15, 20 minutes before I went into the house. It wasn't necessarily because of my family. I just needed to, the job used to be stressful. I just needed time to just sit in the car, listen to music, eat my pizza, just relax.
Decompress.
I think the problem happens is your significant other is thinking you just want to avoid them. So now they're taking that in a negative way because you're not communicating that. So I think communicating that to them is the important piece. Because sometimes we're not thinking about that. Sometimes we're just thinking, I need this piece right now, but we're not telling them it's not about you. I just need this.
Right.
So I could be better for you.
Right. There you go.
Because Because if you start talking right now, I'm not listening.
Right. Right. No, that's right. That's right. Because when men are healthy, though, they stay present even when there's pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That when men have gotten that peace quotient, I'll call it, satisfied, when pressure comes, the man's not going to go running. The man is going to stay there, and because he sees that pressure as an attack against his peace. Whereas if he doesn't have peace and then there's pressure, then he's going to disappear because he's going to try to find some place to find some peace. And unfortunately, what ends up happening, brothers, is men like that will end up going and finding themselves a side chick, because they're just looking for peace, or they become workaholics, and they just keep, they take every bit of overtime on the job, anything to not be home, or they go down to the bar, or they go hang out with the guys, but anything not to be home. And of course, that doesn't help anything because then the ladies get upset and they're wondering, why aren't you home?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, now we talk to the men. Now I want us to take a moment and talk to the women. What should the women know, particularly as it relates to men and them wanting to have peace? What should these men know?
So,
Well, definitely, I'll take this one, Barry. Not every quiet man uh, being indifferent. And I stand on that one because I am definitely a quiet man. And if you were to ask my fiance, she would probably tell you like this one is different. And it wasn't necessarily like I'm plotting to get one ahead, like 5 steps ahead. Like no, like I've always been the type of person to just sit back in the cut and just watch things happen. And if if there was a need for me to step into a situation, I never had that fear of not being able to step in to take control of a situation. But 9 times out of 10, I've always been the type really just to sit back, relax, and just enjoy the view, enjoy the ride. But now also going into being engaged and looking towards being married, I also recognize that I cannot stay that way anymore. So this time period has definitely been a grooming session for me to embrace the leadership role, which every man has that leadership role in them, but also every woman wants their man to embrace that leadership role.
That's good. That's real good. That's real good. Barry, you want to say
yeah,
something?
I think women need to know that peace for men is it's emotional safety. It's knowing that I can come into my house after fighting with the world and having my significant other that I could talk to without judging. They're not constantly criticizing me. That I can feel safe there. Because I know a lot of women say I'm looking for a safe space. I'm looking for safety. Well, so are men. We're looking for
Right.
shelter as well. It doesn't look the same,
Right.
but we both need that sense of safety and shelter. Because it, it's like a uh, someone going into battle like you're our support. And I'm saying this in a physical way, but that's good too. But we need our shoulders massaged. We
Yes.
we need our temples massaged.
Yes.
We need to be uplifted. Um, so that we can go out there and as Carl said, and be the leaders that you want us to be. Because when we get quiet and we pull back, I don't think we're as effective leaders because we're always thinking about the conflict in our home
Right.
rather than just going out and accomplishing the goal.
That's good. That's good. That's excellent. And that's important for our ladies to know that when men get quiet, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're indifferent to what's going on, but it does mean that they are trying to to reclaim some bit of peace so they can keep on doing what they need to do. And ladies, that's what we want you to know, that when a man gets quiet, even though he may not articulate, listen, I need peace, you should take that as a signal to say, let me increase his peace. And it may be the shoulder rub, it may be the gentle kiss just for no reason. It may be just something that uplifts. It may just be a kind word. I'm grateful for how you provide for our family. I'm grateful for how you lead our family. All of those things create an atmosphere of peace for that man. So let's do our lightning round before we close, because our lightning round is really important. We're going to ask some rapid fire questions. In fact, I'm going to ask the questions, and then you all take a couple of seconds to answer them. Okay. So number one, is silence always peace?
No.
If you were to ask me a couple months ago, I would say yes, but no, I recognize it's not.
That's right. It's a substitute, but it's not peace.
No.
Yeah.
Because sometimes your brain is
right.
You have no peace at all. You just quiet.
Right.
Don't talk to me. Because if you talk to me, you might see the peace that I don't have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, question number 2. Can a man need space and still be healthy?
Oh, for sure. For sure, definitely. Because, like, one, correct me if I'm wrong, but, there's other than the fact that, there's a mentality of, I'm born in this world and I'm leaving by myself. Like, that there may be some type of truth to that, but at the end of the day, humans need interaction with other humans. But at the same time, you can be overloaded with that interaction too. So being, just removing yourself from those crowded, those mental, like, oh my God, the light bills due. Oh my God, I gotta wake up early to go to work. Oh my God, my parents are in dealing with their health issues. God forbid, but like, just taking that time to yourself is not a selfish thing.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
And sometimes I just need the space because a situation might arise, and I think it's healthy to grab that space so that I can process. So now that I can deal with this situation effectively, because if I just deal with it now, I'm going to deal with it with my emotions and not with my logic.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Here's the last question. Do men want peace, or do men just want relief? What's the difference?
No, I think
relief. You take this one, Barry.
No. So I think men want peace. I think relief is kind of comparing it to peace. I think it's kind of a cop out, because relief is just like, I just don't want to be bothered.
Mm-hmm. I don't want this no more. Yep.
Yeah, that's not necessarily peace. Yeah, because as we spoke earlier, you can have peace in conflict. You can have peace under pressure. So I don't think men just want relief. They want peace. They want to know that you are with me. That we can ride through this thing together. So yeah, I think men want and need peace.
That's good. That's good. Carl, you want to say something?
No, he definitely touched it. I was just gonna say the exact same thing, that relief is just like you said, it's a cop out. It's like, no matter, like, knowing that conflict is coming, and relief is more so, don't need it.
Yeah.
That's good. So it's a cheap substitute. Like, instead of getting somebody a diamond, you get them a cubic zirconium.
Yeah,
that's really what relief is to peace. It may look nice and be shiny, but it's not going to satisfy what the man really needs.
It's gold, but it's really sulfur.
Yeah, it'll turn your skin green when you wear it. but yet, how many of our brothers live just wanting relief? I just need a little relief, and that's really what breaks a man down. And so, ladies, I would just encourage you, check your man to make sure that he has the peace he needs. And maybe this podcast will spur you asking the question, hey, do you feel like our home is a peaceful home? and be ready for his answer. All right.
Mhm.
And men, I would encourage you to start the conversation about how the absence of peace is making home not feel like home, but have the discussion. Don't just remain in silence, hoping and wishing and praying for peace, because God will bring you peace in your family. But as in all things, men, you've got to lead in order to make that
Yeah.
happen.
Yes, I
Amen.
agree.
All right. Any final comments, Barry or Carl? Any final comments before we get out of here?
Well, just to piggyback off of what you said, I think we do have to be the examples of peace in our home. As you said, we're the leaders, so we have to be that example of peace, and not just in word, but in deed, in the way that we move throughout our family.
That's good. That's good. Carl, what's your final word?
Silence isn't always the answer, but silence is not also the problem.
I
That's you
like
about
it.
to get started up again with that.
All poetic.
Yeah, you about to get started all up again.
Yeah, that might be a continuation. Who knows?
So let's end with this. A good man doesn't just ask for peace. He learns how to build it. So men, is in as much as you make sure your house is provided for, and as much as you want to make sure that your kids have nice things and all that kind of stuff, you are the architect of the peace in your house.
Yes.
And so be intentional about building a peaceful home that everybody can flourish in, because when the man has peace, that then that's transmitted throughout the whole house. Everybody in that house will function better because that peace is present. So we thank you for tonight. Thank you all for being with us. Go forth, create a peaceful home, and let the love that you have be nourished by the peaceful environment that exists in your homes. And if you don't have it, don't give up. Work on it, build it, because you can't take failure for your future. You've got to know that God has something better for you, and peace is your portion. Amen.
Yes. Amen.
All right. Well, you all have an amazing night. We're grateful to each of you. Thank you for being with us in this second podcast. And we know that God is with us, and we're going to continue this. We'll see you next Thursday night as we continue with episode number 3. So God bless you all. Enjoy your night. God bless.